today. So, for today's stream, I want to first start off by saying that I had previously been saying and believed that I was like passing, that I had approached and then was passing and had just passed the halfway point, is what I thought. The reason I thought that is because if we look at the trial material, like the documentation where I've been covering it in terms of where I am scrolling, I have passed scrolling halfway down the page. And I had not counted the trial exhibits. And so I thought I had covered like over half of the trial exhibits. And I forgot to pull this up. But yeah, so I'm sitting over here like, yeah, because, thinking I'm halfway done. If you can see on the screen here that, just a little over getting halfway done with the scrolling part. There's like some dead space at the bottom. The right here, there's like a little top. There's like a little button on the bottom right of the screen that says top with an arrow up from the document. If you click it, it'll take you to the top of it, but I'm not gonna do that. About right around here, if you were to open up this documentation and scroll down, fuck it, we are gonna do it. This there's some dead space, so you're really only reading till you're not needing like reading all of this stuff, right? And so I'm thinking like from where we were that I was about halfway done or had passed halfway done with where we were going, and like I was real excited for a few different live streams now, but it turns out no, I'm not halfway done. I actually counted these bitches. We've done 105 trial exhibits, and to my understanding, if I got that correctly, we have over 100 to go. I don't think I processed, or I don't know if I counted correctly, but I think we have like 112, like over 110 more trial exhibits to cover, and we've only covered 105 so far. And so, yeah. And I also just realized I usually try to start these off by differentiating because there are two monopoly cases on Google that I'm covering right now. And the one that I'm actually going into the documentation, because the other one I've just covered news reports of. But for the one that I'm actually going into the legal documentation so far, we have been on the search monopoly case. The initial complaint was filed 2020. The trial exhibits we've been reviewing are from 2023. Yeah, so I wanted to just begin with this, like, hey, I was wrong. I thought I was over halfway with the trial exhibits, but no, I'm not. We've got way more to go. So that's, yeah. Anyway, I just spent like way too long bitching about that, so I'm sorry. Or maybe you're welcome. Who knows? So yeah, but alright, so I'm going to do what we do for usual with all of these trial exhibit videos. I'm going to roll my intro, we'll recap the last one, and then we're just going to keep going and see how many more I can get through today. Hi, my name is Alexis, also known as Lexi or Deaf Child. I was born deaf, hard of hearing. I began doing business as Deaf Child 2013, marketing 2011, sales 2009. I've earned 50 plus certifications in marketing and sales. My Bachelor of Science from Loyola University, New Orleans, with a music industry studies major and a business administration minor. Deafness runs in my family genetically. Speech is not fully accessible to me. Anyway, I'm here to bitch about whatever the fuck is on my mind. So here we go. Visit my site at noladeafchild.com. Okay, so in the last trial exhibit coverage, I only got to one, and it's the very first time I've only done one of these, but it had turned out to be, the document was only 11 pages, but there's just so much material on that documentation. It really took me like, I think it took me almost an hour to read it all. At least 45 minutes, I think, if I'm not mistaken, just to read the 11-page document. And so it was a lot of material. I did give my best attempt at giving it a summary at the end of the last live stream, but I don't know if I had processed it correctly, but yeah. But because that attempt of a summary was so long last time. I'm going to try for a shorter one this time. So out of that entire 11-page document, the first one, like basically the whole thing is redacted, so the court got to see it, but we don't. But I'm assuming. But fucking so Prabhakar Bhagavan on January 1st, 2019, he had written in an email to Thomas Iljic, if I'm saying that correctly. I believe it was just to him, if I'm not wrong. But basically, he was saying in this email, it's kind of like a summary of it, of everything. He had talked about how they were having a discussion on advertisers' reactions to pricing changes. And he said that this had a presumption of a two-person game between the advertiser and Google. And at some point on the pricing curve, advertisers could abandon Google if they thought they should, you know. But then he said, really, isn't it three players? The advertisers, Google, and Google's competitors. They said that the discussion seemed to not take into account to where the advertiser could get traffic of similar quality and price. So isn't the real point where an advertiser switches this out determined by the surrounding market? And so that kind of summarizes the whole conversation, because the rest of it was a internal document about how ad quality was using pricing, and it was referring to two types of advertisers, and they were saying that one type of advertiser would lower their bids by modifying other settings such as keyword match types and campaign pausing and things like that, right, to get back a specific return on investment. Versus another type of advertiser, if their performance wasn't doing well, then they would just spend their money elsewhere. And so they were talking about which one was more of a risk to them, and from there kind of got into this like big semantic discussion and debate in the comments of this article about how they should price. And they also were talking about value-based pricing, and they were literally saying that with value-based pricing, if I understood correctly, so they first mentioned value-based pricing, where they say that value-based pricing goes after leveraging better understanding of value to set better reserves. And by the reserves, that kind of means the baseline of pricing, because it's an ad auction system, you know what I'm saying? And then he was saying, or another person, well, the same person was saying that appropriate reserves, for example, would mean to make sure that they don't let ads go for pennies when they know it's worth at least a certain amount, and that it's an interesting angle to pursue it with value-based pricing. So that's where they were first mentioning value-based pricing. And then, if I'm not mistaken, they say it again, but let me see, where is it? They were debating heavily on whether or not it was a bigger risk to them for advertisers to spend their money elsewhere, or for advertisers to fuck with the system to make the cost per click cheaper, right? And so they were having some semantic debates about that. Why do I have it in my head they mentioned value-based pricing again, though? I'm kind of scrolling through this article right now. Oh, yes. Okay, so then they say they're talking about the price and cost per click curve, the pricing curve of cost per click, right? Why do I keep saying right? I've been watching so many YouTube videos or other people fucking say that a lot, and now I'm doing it. The hell, man. Anyway, I could be wrong, right or wrong, who knows, but I just mean like right in terms of following the logic, not necessarily I'm correct. That may not be, but I think I could be if I got this right. It's a lot of information to process. Anyway, so then they start talking about value maximization properties is where it comes out of the auction. And they say, let's see. Don't they say something else? Why do I think they do? Boop. Maybe I'm wrong. Okay, and then they start talking about how Google is a good value compared to other forms. That's it. Alright, and then that's the whole conversation. So, where did I believe there was something that they said where I was like, this is what had stood out to me when I was reading it yesterday, and I was like, they're just using value to price wherever the fuck they want now, aren't they? Let's see. I said I wasn't going to spend too long on this, and here I am spending way too long on this. And also, I feel like I overused this thing, but it's fucking worth it.
One eternity later.
So, I don't know why I thought not showing this on the screen would help me not spend too much time on it, but I feel like, you know, just going over that one document, see if I can find what was standing out to me last time. Let's take it from, let's see. You know, I think it may have been this line where he said, setting appropriate reserves, however, for example, that make sure we don't let ads go for pennies when we know they're at least worth X, is I think an interesting angle we're currently pursuing with value-based pricing. I think that could possibly be it, where I was just like, yeah, I guess they're using that as an excuse to charge whatever the fuck they want then. Because, you know, some clicks should go for pennies on the dollar if that's what the fucking click is worth. Because how much is it costing Google, really? You know what I'm saying? Here it is. Okay, I found it. So they said in one part, I wonder how much value plays into this in reality. For example, I think there is a belief that when auctions become thicker and increase prices, that might be safer than raising the prices in a thin auction, which in the former, we are likely closing in on the actual value of the click, whereas in the latter, prices might exceed the true value. Right? However, again, this is all hypothetical. And then they also were saying is another way to put this that different mechanisms for price increase can have very different risks for exceeding value. And then they also said if we see a price increase from more competition, it feels safer than a big price increase from reserves we train on our end. Since in the first case, we know that someone in the road is willing to pay that much. And again, that's why I harp on if why are people bidding a bunch of money for clicks just because they have it? You know what I'm saying? You're fucking it up for everybody. So yeah. I don't know. There was a reason that I felt like I had thought that, and I really feel like you could kind of make that argument with a bunch of this shit that we're seeing here, but yeah, I don't want to spend too long trying to reread this again because I already have. So I apologize. I said this is going to be a fucking quick recap, and we're here for 20 fucking minutes later. So yeah. So now we're actually going to move right the fuck along. And just see if we can get through maybe a few more or so documents. We have done 105 so far, so let's see. So next up, we've got UPX 0522. And this is an email from Jerry Dischler of Google to Anil Sabharwal of Google, and it's a reply about important SQV update from May 3rd, 2019. And this was filed September 27th, 2023. So, Jerry, let's back this up a little. So from Jerry Dischler to Anil Sabharwal, the reply about important SQV update, and CC'd we have Prabhakar Raghavan, Nick Fox, Benedict Gomez, John Malatis, Hiroshi Lockheimer, and that is it. Alright, so it says, thanks Anil for pushing your team and for being open to this whole line of thinking. Is there any chance we can converge on this more quickly? To elaborate, just looking at this very tactically, and sorry to go into this level of detail, but based on where we are, I'm afraid it's warranted. We are short a redacted percentage of queries and are ahead on ads launches, so are short on a redacted percentage of revenue versus plan. If we don't hit plan, our sales team doesn't get its quota for the second quarter in a row, and we miss the street's expectations again, which is not what Ruth signaled to the street. So we get punished pretty badly in the market. We are shaking the cushions on launches and have some candidates in May that will help. But if these break in mid-late May, we only get half a quarter of impact or less, which means we need redacted percentage or more access to where we are today and can't do it alone. The search team is working together with us to accelerate a launch out of a new mobile layout by the end of May that will be very revenue positive. Exact numbers still moving, but that still won't be enough. Our best shot at making the quarter is if we get an injection of at least redacted percentage, ideally redacted percentage, queries ASAP from Chrome. Some folks on our side are running a more detailed, finance blessed, I cannot speak, what if analysis on this, and should be done with that in a couple of days. But I expect that these will be the rough numbers. The question we are all faced with is how badly do we want to hit our numbers this quarter? We need to make this choice ASAP. I don't know why I say ASAP sometimes and ASAP others, but we're just going to roll with it. I care more about revenue than the average person, but think we can all agree that for all of our teams trying to live in high-cost areas, another redacted amount in stock price loss will not be great for morale, not to mention the huge impact on our sales team. I'm super proud of our pure approach at Google and don't want to poison the culture of any team, and this is why I haven't pushed harder. I also don't want the message to be, we're doing this thing because the ads team needs revenue. That's a very negative message, but my question to all of you is, based on above, what do we think is the best decision for Google overall? In that spirit, do we think it's worth reconsidering a rollback? Or are there very scrappy tactical tweaks we can launch with holdback that we know will increase queries? For example, can we increase vertical space between the search box, icons, feed, a new tab to make search more prominent? Are there other ranking tweaks we can push out very quickly? Are there other entry points we haven't focused on that we could push back on? That we haven't focused on that we could push on soon. Close enough, fuck it. Just to be clear, the reason I haven't pushed harder on our rollback so far is because I don't want the message to be, and then I guess it's redacted because it's blank. I don't fucking know. And then it says, would love your thoughts and sorry for the long email. Best, Jerry. Before that, Anil Sabharwal. Shit, I am not saying that right. I don't know. Anil Sabharwal. So, apologies. had written, apologies for the delay. Been traveling. Okay, I think we have a plan. Given we can't launch all of these changes at the same time anyway. Apologies, text message. Otherwise, we can't measure impact individually. And we don't want bad press around I.O. Let's roll out number 1 and number 2 now and get the benefits. Let's also start the search ranking experiments ASAP and roll those out once we get the data. I'll bring it back to this group for approval first. That takes us to the week after I.O. anyway, at which point we are meeting and going through the menu of options as Jerry describes it. We can then review all the options and decide if we still want to roll back then. Gonna answer a message real quick. Alrighty. And then it also says, Ben, agree on all your points. It's a maybe title before URL. And then a little smiley face with a colon, little parentheses. It says, let's discuss in a meeting in 2 weeks and we can agree to roll back then if need be. Apologies for texting while reading this, but life is hard. Trying to do things, be there for people, but also do what I need to do to check out mentally too a little bit. Drinking my white grape juice. I mean, I like any grape juice, but I keep getting the white grape juice because if I spill it, I'm less likely to stain some shit. Anyway, and then the rest of this email says, does that work for everyone? Thanks, Anil. And before that, Jerry Dischler had said, yes, agree that we should shoot for at least a redacted percentage. There is some indication of bias, but per Atanas, there is, I cannot speak, I don't even know what the fuck Atanas is here, but per Atanas, there is less certainty around this hypothesis than other aspects of the decline. The question, in my view, is, what is the full set of opportunities that will get us the queries back based on our current understanding and what is the time frame? Then, from this menu, we can pick the ones that add up to the target result with the lowest negative impact. Where I think the discussion gets tough is if the total doesn't get us close to the target or if the timelines are unacceptably long. And before that, Anil Sabharwal had said, good news is we are aligned on the goals. What I'm struggling with is for number 1, over what period of time is short term and what cost is acceptable. User experience, risk to long-term retention, team motivation. Of the redacted percentage, our understanding across the 3 teams is at least redacted percentage is forecasting, and we're trying to actively understand and claw back the redacted percentage. We are making progress here, and I am hopeful the search ranking improvements in Omnibox will also be a material increase in SQB. But I understand we need to do more. I just want to make sure we know what rolling back this change will be a high cost, and given the team is clearly motivated, and I have them aligned now on your number 2, I would hate to make short-term gains here that hurt us a lot more in the long term. I'll get you the metrics ASAP. Cheers, A. So let's see what the fuck Atanas is. It's, this didn't help. Maybe it's a project name for that they had. It could refer to the affiliate marketing empire of Atanas Tanev, some dude like that, or a senior director. Okay, it could be a name, a person's name it looks like, perhaps. I don't know. I'm assuming perhaps that's a person's name, perhaps it's the name of a project. Only reason I think it could be a name of a project shit, I can't speak, is it's a Greek name apparently, or some shit like that. I don't know. So that's something I don't fucking know. And then what the fuck does SQV mean, man? Let's see. That is. Sales quality variance. There's a consultant agency that does SEO. I don't know, whatever, something like that. That's called that. All right, and then was there something else I wanted to look up? Oh yeah, let's look up Omnibots while we're at it. Okay, apparently it's a reference to omni-channel marketing. That I was aware of, but all right. Orders at Omnibots Events, which is an agency. Oh, no, Chrome Omnibots is probably what they mean. It says the Google Chrome Omnibots provide instant, convenient answers to user queries. Okay, let's the Chrome Omnibots meaning. Let's look at what they mean specifically by that. So omni-channel marketing is just literally across channels. You know what I'm saying? The different. So Omnibots is just like Google Chrome's combined address bar and search bar. Okay, there it is. That makes sense. Ah, so that does make sense how, okay, so having default placement on search engine, different places for search bars across the web or any type of application or anything like that online, is how Google was getting their revenue share and things like that. They were using revenue share to get default placement on that shit in order to get more revenue from ads and leads and users and stuff like that, right? To continue to cycle. But the SQV meaning sales quantity variance, or the site qualification visit or something like that. But like sales quantifying for variety of those bitches, whatever. Yeah, that is connected. Now I see that. All right, let's keep going. And so then before that, Jerry Dischler had written that he was adding Prabhakar Raghavan 2 and said, thanks Anil, and great news on number 1 through 4. Can you send links to experiments so we can determine revenue impacts of the existing work? We can then compare these to the impacts for number 4 and number 7. Broadly, we and ads have 2 objectives in all of these discussions. 1. Short term. Reverse the sudden query-driven revenue loss that we saw in quarter 3 of last year. We're neutral to mechanism as long as we can reverse the loss, which is a redacted percent of desktop queries. Right now, it looks like we have line of sight to redacted percent of queries and experiments running on the Chrome and search side that have unknown positive impacts, but I'd be willing to bet are significantly below a redacted percent. It's a decent start, but collectively, we need to figure out how to do more, and this work is urgent because we continue to face these strong headwinds in quarter 2. 2. Long term. It really feels like through some deliberate efforts, we can actually use entry points like Chrome to drive query growth while at the same time improving the overall user experience of the product and competitive position relative to Edge and others. We should explore this aggressively. Best, Jerry. And before that, Anil Sabharwal had said, agree. Understanding the actual revenue numbers here would be valuable. Jerry, is this something you can help with using the data we have from the 3% experiment? Logic is sound, and if this is the argument, we should reconsider number 4, ablate all, since I can't really make a strategy argument for favicons either. The issue is indeed the last point you make, but it's not just morale. It's more about giving my team a sense of ownership over the problem and an opportunity to get behind a new set of rules of engagement. I had a team meeting today and was very clear on how we need to approach these types of launches and prioritize work that was good for users and SQV. It's a cultural shift and one we absolutely need to make. But it's hard to do this by starting with an undo alert that's been live for 7 months and was approved by all teams, including ads, before the launch happened, and the impact is exactly as expected. I was willing to do it because I felt it was necessary. I wanted to help stop the bleeding and demonstrate that we are willing to be good partners and do what it takes. My team responded by doing me one better and giving us options that drive revenue and are good for users at the same level or more than what we plan to roll back. It's going to be hard for me to say, nice job, still roll back. The absolute monetary value will always be the same, so how do I show it's ever worth it, other than balancing across all feature launches? Some will be SQV positive, others will be negative. Intent is to end net up. All these little things ultimately add up to retaining Chrome users. If we lose them, we will see far greater SQV loss, and I won't have any way to get them back. And it says, tag in Hiroshi in case this comes up in leads and he needs to defend my position. Or he wants to veto it. I am going to go turn down my AC real quick. I will be right back. And I'm just like literally going to fucking leave this here, man. And my fucking door, it literally just opened, like the airflow will make my door open. Why am I fucking talking while I walk away? Can y'all even hear me? Who knows? But I push that box in front of my fucking door sometimes because otherwise the airflow, if it doesn't really like shut right because it doesn't fit in the frame right, and it'll open and shut on its own though because the hinge and the weight of the door will still bring it back there even if it I don't know with words. I feel like I'm silly. But anyway, every now and then my door will make some weird ass noises unless I can have something on the back of it to make it stay shut. Okay. Life is hard. Anyway. Or lock it. I could lock it, but I like my people being able to come on in if they want to, if they come in over. I'm going to answer this text message. And we're going to get back going. My throat kind of hurts, so I might not do too much tonight. Anyway, so before all of that, we basically were just reading about Anil Sabharwal basically saying that she went out of her way to try and motivate her team. They did a really good job, and now she doesn't want to have to go be like, great work, but still not be able to follow through on the project. To the extent that they would like to do it, is what I'm understanding. And then, before all of that, Nick had said, thanks for the note, Anil, and great news about 1 through 4. That's really nice progress, particularly number 1. Couple of thoughts. 1, it would be really nice to understand what the actual revenue impact is of number 7. My back of the envelope is redacted of desktop, google.com revenue over year. And a redacted percent of Chrome share. I don't know, this shit is redacted. And then it says redacted in annual revenue impact. To me, that feels meaningful, regardless of what other changes claw back some revenue. 2, I agree that the user experience is better as is, but I don't have a good sense for how much it matters to the overall Chrome experience. My sense is not that much. I bet we could spend a redacted in I bet we could spend redacted in better ways to drive Chrome usage than through this change, for example. So, net, I think it's tricky because the absolute monetary numbers are large. I think the bigger issue is the impact to your team morale. And from that point of view, if forcing this down their throats causes resentment and therefore slower progress on other efforts to drive query volume, that's not good over the long term. Nick. Before that, Anil Sabharwal had written Ben, Nick, Jerry. Thanks again for the partnership and productive conversation. After last night's meeting, the Chrome team was able to rally and make a couple of heroic things happen. 1. With your team's help, thank you, we were able to get launch approval to roll out 2 changes. Entity suggest and tail suggest that increase queries by redacted percent and something else is redacted percent and something else is redacted percent respectively. How do you have 3 increases but you only made 2 changes? I don't know. But anyway, or maybe 1 is total. Who knows? Maybe the first is total and the other 2 are respective. That makes sense, but I don't know. And then it says we are rolling both of these out live to users tomorrow. Number 2. We are going to immediately start experiments to improve search ranking in the Omnibots. More search results and nudging search to the top. As soon as we get the data around these improvements, we will roll these out to 100% within 2 to 3 weeks. Number 3, we have another SQV positive feature, query in Omnibots, that we are able to roll out in the next few weeks. Need to see if it's net SQV positive or if we're shifting queries from the search bots on SRP to Omnibots, but we're hopeful it will be net positive. 4. We will launch location entity suggest for M75 June, which should have similar impact to the entity suggest improvement. Given the above improvements, especially the redacted percent query volume increase we expect to start to see early as this week, I would like to hold off on the rollback, number 7, we discussed last night. We, Chrome, absolutely need to do our part to stop the bleeding ASAP, but given 1. We all agree number 7 is worse for users in product usability, and the rollback runs the risk of bad PR or user sentiment during the week of I/O. 2. The latest ablation experiment data for number 7 only showed a query volume increase of a redacted percent. 3. The improvements The improvements above should more than cover this, and we will start rolling out immediately. I believe this to be the right trade-off. I acknowledge another viewpoint is we should do all of the above to maximize SQV, including the rollback, but in the long run, I think this will actually hurt the inertia and motivation the team has to build features that are good for users and increase SQV. By balancing these launches, we send the right message to the team on how we want to operate and partner. To be clear, knowing what we know now, we likely would have not made the decision to launch these Omnibots changes in the first place until we were able to balance them with other launches. And so I think we're in a good place with my team and their understanding for how we want to move forward. But given this has been live for 7 months and is very visible, see, I'm reading that right, that's what it said. See this Reddit thread where users in our ablation experiment noticed and called it a bug. And we have a different way to help, partially, stop the bleeding right now. I no longer feel the cost outweighs the short-term benefit. If you disagree, please let me know and we can jump on a call ASAP to discuss. It's important to me we work together to make these calls. Thanks, Anil. P.S. All the experiments for the NTP around fake bots and shortcut ablation are still running and we will have the data in the next week. Whew, that was a lot. A lot in 5 pages. Alright. Let's see if I can do 1 or 2 more, but I don't know. But to sum all this up, basically, this bitch, to my understanding, is like, look, I know that we were spending a lot of money. We just didn't realize that we had to be profitable as quick as we should. So here I am begging for my team's job because these bitches are awesome. Look how hard they work. We need these hard-working bitches. So keep us on board. We're going to keep working hard. And yeah, and we're going to do that by maximizing sales. If I got the SQV acronym right? Something like that. You know what I'm saying? And Yeah, but I don't know. I wonder why. I haven't processed why this is in evidence. I feel like that's all I got out of this, but I haven't processed why it's relevant to the monopoly, right? Um, perhaps it could be that they were actively strategizing to maintain their market dominance at the times where it was slipping. Maybe that was something, but so that part I haven't processed, like why it's in evidence. But what I got from that document, if I understood it correctly, was basically like this one team, they were working hard, but the work they were doing wasn't immediately going to be generating users and sales, and so they had to adjust their plan to get on a more profitable lead acquisition path, if I'm not mistaken, or something like that. Who knows? Um, but yeah, let's do another. Fuck it. Let's do another. I might do one or two more. I don't know. It's okay. So next up, we got UPX0552, and this is an email from Joan Braddi of Google to Sundar Pichai of Google et al. It's a reply about Apple response to extension term length from June 7, 2007, and it's updated, and this was filed October 30th, 2023. Oh, goody. Another long one for me to read. So, it's from Joan Braddi. It's to Sundar Pichai and Sergey Brin. I believe, so they're all Google employees here, but it's about Apple. And CC, we've got Jonathan Rosenberg, Joan Braddi, Omid Kordestani, Eric Schmidt, and Jeff Shardell. And it says, I agree, Sundar, which is why we need more time to think through this request rather than signing up without the benefit of knowledge of how they plan to implement us in these search access points. Sergey. Is it Sergey or Sergey? I'm so sorry, dude. I don't know how to say your name. The meaning behind Steve's request to you is he is trying to sell himself, not internally. We gave them a very generous generous offer without the ability to run numbers or ask how they plan to implement choice and us as the default. To Sundar's point, if they offer two types of browsers, one with Y and one with Google, even on the Mac side, we are just paying for loyal Google users, which means that Apple added no value but insists on receiving 50% of the revenue. My opinion is to tell Steve our offer yesterday was very generous considering Apple has not discussed fully their plans nor how Google would be placed as default in these other applications to measure benefit to Google. I would hold firm. What Steve is asking is another 2.5 years for Mac and iPhone and 18 months for Windows. I agree with Steve that fences need to be mended, but it is Apple who needs to mend the fence. We have acted as partners in good faith and they have not. Perhaps ask him for browser collaboration, which Steve stopped. Good partners would have given us their plans and time to evaluate before setting a clock for our decision. Sorry. I would let them try someone else for search if they don't like our last offer. Again, the Mac users are pretty loyal to Google. Just my opinion. Again, these are negotiating tactics that Steve is famous for to get his terms. Joe. From Sundar Pichai to Sergey Brin, with Jonathan Rosenberg, Joan Braddi, Omid Kordestani, Eric Schmidt, and Jeff Shardell CC'd. And it's still this reply about Apple response to extension term length. Joan, not sure whether you will be speaking with Phil today, but there is one more thing we should talk to them about. I know we are insisting on default, but at the same time, I think we should encourage them to have Yahoo as a choice in the pull down or some other easy option. I don't think it is a good user experience, nor the optics is great for us to be the only provider in the browser. Sergey, do you agree with this? I don't think I'm saying his name right. I'm sorry. We should ask their plans on how they will present this choice. In the past, they had mentioned offering two versions of Safari, Google version and Yahoo version. So one concern is they actually position this as true browsers, Safari Google and Safari Yahoo, in which Google and Yahoo are the default respectively. They are really not making us the default, as the user can choose between the two versions but get the rev share per the contract. So I think it is important to find out how they plan to do this in case we are missing something. Thanks, Sundar. And before that, Sergey, I don't know, had said, I agree we should hold firm, but I don't think their analysis is as sophisticated as you suggest. Also, I'm not sure it will turn out quite that way, but in any case, they will agree to our offer. And before that, Jonathan Rosenberg, and this is the original message apparently, had said to, oh no, not the original, there's more that just says that, I apologize. So, um, Jonathan Rosenberg had said to Joan Braddi, Omid Kurdistani, Joan is on here twice, Sergey Brin, so is Omid, I don't know, Eric Schmidt, Jeff Sardell, and Sundar Pichai with Jonathan. Oh, he CC'd himself? Fuck, I don't know. Okay. He said, I've been staying out of this and leaving the deal to the professional negotiators, as is my custom. But to the extent you want another opinion, I would not budge. The truth is that they know that for the most part, assessing performance will increasingly reveal that we are being extremely generous. If current market share dynamics and trends continue to play out, our terms will look even more generous ex post. No, I'm reading this right. This just doesn't sound right. If the don't lock us in, I'm assuming he meant they. If they don't lock us in for a long time, they can't really continue to negotiate for a lot more than the data reveals they deserve, based on any logical business position. So they are just playing brinkmanship here, with the launch point as leverage. You guys have been more generous lately in duration and terms than I would have been, so I strongly support Joan's position to hold firm. I believe that iPhone will sell close to as well as predicted for exactly 1 quarter, and that search revenue will be limited. And that's from Jonathan. And then Joan had said to Image, and then okay, they keep CCing themselves. I'm gonna stop with all that shit. I have been doing that previously because I felt like it was important to articulate and name these people involved in these discussions. But at this point, we fucking get it. All these bitches are on this conversation. All right. Anyway, so before that, Joan had said, Bill called after reviewing our offer on the extension. He believes the current language in the Safari agreement allows them to put search boxes anywhere and receive the rev share, phone, Windows, Mac, etc. What he wants to counter is 2.5 years from now for all search access points. I told him, once again, that we were willing to honor their interpretation within the Safari agreement, for which the intention was Mac OS search within Safari and not any access point. But this is what happens with long-term agreements as the market changes. And we would be willing to pay not only for the remainder of that term, the next 6 months, but even a time frame extension to these access points, which was offered in the email message below. However, asking us to consider 2 or more years beyond the current term without the ability to assess performance, incremental value of each offering, nor what other access points Apple plans to deliver during the longer term, was a bit unreasonable to assume we would be willing to blindly do such a long extension without the benefit of time, further discussion, and data analysis. Phil understands our position and did not bite me on this point. Told him I would convey his counter, but I set his expectations that the offer presented via email was after executive review and collaboration before agreeing to the extensions offered, and I did not expect we would change our offer. Recommendation: we should hold firm. This is their tactic of negotiations, and we will be fine either way, I believe. If they drop us from the default in 6 months, we will still be selected by a majority of Mac users who revolted 2 years ago when they heard that Apple may be switching to Yahoo. I also believe the same would be true of their Windows version, or at the very least, we will be one of the selected, if not default, for which we will gain user selection without paying rev share. Mobile. Well, I don't expect much in the way of search revenue from the iPhone for a while. Do we expect that many searches? The worst case is they have us for 6 months to use our search and see the value. If we accept their interpretation of the Safari agreement, they would have to make us the default for all these access points for the next 6 months anyway. Joan. And this is from Ahmed Kordestani to all of these bitches, and he had said, "Nice work, Joan. Let's hold firm now and not further reward Steve's negotiation tactics. We are of course delaying the addressing of the browser rendering issues Sundar has with them." And before that, Joan had said, "FYI, what I just sent to Phil. I'll let you know his response." Alright, and now we are down to what Joan sent to Phil, the original message about extension term length. So, Phil, in our effort to bridge the gap in term length extension desired by Apple, we wish to propose the following. Mac Safari browser, Google as default search provider, extended term length by 1 year from current term until January 2009. iPhone search, Google as default search provider, term 3 years or until June 2010. Windows Safari browser, Google as default search provider, test period 1 year from June 2007 or until June. Google and Apple will work together to figure out how incremental value is measured based on data collected from Windows browser. Phil, Google is very interested in extending our working relationship with Apple. We could have done this better if we had more time and not just a few days to consider the extension and the added products. This extension gives us another 18 months with our current Mac Safari relationship, adds the iPhone to the scope of the agreement and for a term of 3 years from now, and gives us both 1 year to test the Windows browser for Apple users. Please call me if you have any questions. Best regards, Joan. Alrighty, and it looks like that's it. So, basically, it looks like this documentation shows the internal communication related to the negotiations that happened around 2007 regarding revenue share agreements and default placements and exclusivity between Google and Apple. And if I remember correctly and have understood all the information we've been reading correctly, what I believe may have ended up happened is that this does not go in Apple's favor. I do believe that it ends up going the way Google wants it, and they're able to lock Apple into that, if I'm not mistaken. But I could be wrong. Anyway, so from then on, we're going to do one more, I think, tonight. We've got exhibit UPX 0558. And this is an email from Ashish Pimplapure. I don't know if I'm saying that right. I am so sorry. Of Google to Jamie Rosenberg of Google. And to reply about KR in 2 weeks. And it's from June 11, 2016. With an attachment Google document, Meetings with Samsung. From April 29, 2015. And this was filed October 30th, 2023. I don't know what the fuck they mean by KR. But if they don't tell us, I'm gonna Google that shit. So, yeah, this is probably gonna be my last one. Fuck it, let's go ahead and Google it. Oh, okay, key results. Duh, I knew that. Anyway, maybe. Who knows? I don't know. So, Alright, so this is from Ashish Pimplapure to Jamie Rosenberg with Jim Calatoro CC'd. And we've got a reply for KR in 2 weeks. So, said, thanks, Jamie. MADA, which stands for Mobile Application Distribution Agreement. Jay and Jenny are planning to meet with us next week in MTV to present their MADA proposal. So, honestly, besides the network MTV, I don't know what the fuck else they mean by that, so who knows. And then it says, they have not suggested a date or time yet. Jenny walked me through some of the proposed changes, and I will share those in an email. And then it says AFW/knots. Honestly, no fucking clue what they mean by that. It says, this has been and I'm not Googling it. It says, this has been a long-standing discussion on same topics, and I have not seen a clear positioning from either team. Maybe those are the regions? I don't know. I'm making shit up now. Meanwhile, Samsung has pushed forward with NOTS-only solutions in some of the B2B verticals. They have had specific asks. I cannot fucking say that. SKSs are very hard for me to say. Asks is hard for me to say. Can't say risks. Fuck, man. I cannot hear S and I cannot hear the right. So, you know, I can't do, I'm deaf. I have sensory neural deafness. These are the letters I cannot hear. Fuck. Anyway. Where was I? Shit. Markham. Oh yeah. So they have had specific asks of Google. Shit. Ass and titties. Ass and titties. Okay, they have had specific asks of Google since last year. See this, for example. We don't get to see it. I don't know what the example is. We just need to ensure that both teams are aligned. Samsung might bring up comms at a Hiroshi level discussion. Oh, is that racist? So I will add that as well. Or is, oh wait, no, they have a person that they're probably just referring to one of their workers. That's my bad. I apologize. Anyway, in the past, HQ had refrained from discussion revenue share since GIC owns it. While they are underwhelmed with GIC's progress thus far, they will toe the party line and defer revenue share discussions to GIC. We'll prepare a draft doc and share it next week. Then need to sync with Samsung as well for any items that they want to bring up. Regards, Ashish. Well, you know what? I don't even remember who the fuck is saying this. Anyway, so I forgot that Hiroshi was a person that right there for a second. But, yeah. Anyway. Okay, and before that, Jamie had said, "Hi Ashish, I've decided to accompany you and Hiroshi from HK, I'm assuming they mean Hong Kong, I don't know, to Korea, where you guys go back there after the OEM summit." OEM is operating equipment manufacturer, and it's just referring to the bitches that make the devices we use. And it says, "I think it's important for continuity with some of the things we discussed this week. For Samsung, can you please give some thought to an agenda we can share with Hiroshi? Some initial ideas. MADA. This is a great forcing function to get Samsung to write down its feedback on MADA. Say that we want to have a discussion about their feedback in KR. In key results, I don't know, and need to get it in time to prepare. Or could that be Korea? Is KR an acronym for Korea? Yes, it does. So it stands for Republic of Korea or South Korea. Okay. And KP is North Korea, apparently. Maybe that's it. I don't know. So KR could mean key results. It could mean Korea. Who knows? With our discussion about their feedback in KR, I need to get it in time to prepare. I am going to deliver this message to Jay when I see him early this week. AFW/knots. Depending on how next week's meeting in Suwon go, I'm worried that In Jong's view of the world AFW on top of knobs is exactly opposite of the AFW team's view of the world. Don't know what the fuck they mean by that. And then it says PAI App Store follow-up. And then it says emoji per Hiroshi. I don't know. This says S8 discussion and then VR depending on progress this week, as well as music follow-up. I don't have the context to know what any of this fucking shit means in relevance to this. And then it says, not sure if we want to address rev share. It might be as simple as figuring out the one-line message we want DJ to hear about the GIC team being unreasonable. I don't even know what the fuck the GIC team is. Anything else? If you can put it into a draft doc, we can iterate. Also, if the plan for Hiroshi to visit LG in Seoul as well, or just meet with them in HK. I don't think I said that right, but close enough. Thanks, Jamie. Okay. And then, looks like we got the attached document here about the meetings with Samsung. I don't know if this is like... Okay, so it's an attached Google document called Meetings with Samsung, but I'm not sure if it's like an agenda or meeting notes or what. But it says date, April 29th, 2015. Location, Samsung headquarters in Suwon, South Korea. Okay, so the KR probably does mean Korea. Alright, and then here we have key points. Samsung to decide if they want to separate RCS from IMS. Don't know what the fuck that means, and I'm not looking it up. Follow up with Hiroshi over email. Samsung wants personal broadcast as a USP for Note 5. Is that unique selling proposition they mean? I don't know. If not, I don't know. We'll send over vision and requirements to YouTube team for evaluation. Google and Samsung. Okie dokie, I apologize. I just need a quick moment, and then I'm going to be right back. And then I really don't want to take too long, though, for this break, because I just want to bang this bitch out. So I'm going to be right back, and then we're going to bang this out. Where the fuck is my button at? Marco, hold on. Okay. was muted. My bad. Okay, sorry about that. Fucking one of my people ended up in an accident, but so I'm about to finish this up and then I gotta go deal with things, but yeah. But me taking 20 more minutes won't change whatever's gonna happen. So I'm gonna finish this up right now and then I gotta get on out of here. But yeah, so I forgot exactly where the fuck we were with these key points. So I'm probably just gonna start rereading them again. But basically, we had just finished the email conversation about Google employees going to Korea. And it looks like they are planning to go, and it looks like this is their agenda. And that is what I'm assuming. But like, I don't know if this is like an agenda for the meeting or talking points or however the fuck they're gonna word it or think of it, but whatever. And this is from April 29th, 2015, or at least that's what the meeting was, I think. But the key points that they have here, it said Samsung to decide if they want to separate RCS from IMS. Don't know what that means. Follow up with Hiroshi over email. Samsung wants personal broadcast as a USP for Note 5. Will send over vision and requirements to YouTube team for evaluation. Google and Samsung to collaborate on ways to improve S6 performance in B2C. Google and Samsung to identify growth opportunities in B2B. Samsung pushed back strongly on proposed terms for revenue share agreements, with like higher revenue share with no upgrade commitments and no exclusivity requirements. Comment 1. Samsung showed data that they were holding their own in B2C relative to Apple. However, in enterprise, Samsung's share trails far behind Apple. So they feel B2B is the key place to focus. Then it says morning session, and it lists the attendees from Google and Samsung. So from Google, we got Hiroshi, Felix, I cannot pronounce these names, I apologize, Jung Young, Ornella, Jim, and Ashish. And then for Samsung, we got DJ Ko, In Jung Ray, Han Kil Yu, Peter Koo, MS Shin, ES Chung, and others. And then it's all redacted, yippee! And then we got the afternoon session. And for those attendees, we've got from Google, Ornella, Jim, Felix, and Ashish. And from Samsung, Han Kil Yoon, Peter Koo, and others. And then for meeting notes, it says discussion on revenue share. TLDR. Samsung pushed back strongly on 1. Coupling revenue with share with upgrades, and 2. Exclusivity requirements. They want higher revenue share, 30% versus 25%. Revenue share on Tizen. I honestly don't know what the fuck that is. No upgrade commitments. No exclusivity. These are partial or condensed notes. Feel free to sync up offline on regulatory implications or other issues. For Samsung, we did market research on what revenue share is appropriate. Data is sketchy. Got data points from antitrust cases, speculation on revenue share deals from Wall Street, etc. Our conclusion is that the proposed number is reasonable. It is not outrageous. However, trying revenue share to upgrade percentage is outside the norm. Samsung, our perspective is that things are outside of our control. Coupling upgrades with revenue share is difficult to accept. Are you expecting some behavior change from operators? Are your other revenue share deals tied to upgrades? Google. Structure is intended to align our goals and provide incentives. This has executive commitment. Not all partners get a revenue share. Google. Proposal requires you to commit to just one major upgrade during the entire term, and the device will be eligible for higher revenue share for the entire term. Samsung. In that case, keep the incentive, lose the penalty. We have many models to upgrade. We cannot limit upgrades to open market. iOS is verticalized. We have to manage SOCs. I don't know what the fuck they mean by that. Operators, component manufacturers, etc. Also, users complain about upgrades. And then we have comment 4 here, but I feel like I missed comment 2 and 3. And it looks like if those were here, that was redacted. So the next comment we get to see here, it says, have we found this to be true? If so, why? And it's from a redacted Google employee about that last Samsung note. And then the other points we get to see say, Google, if we look at this market by market, some markets matter more than others. What really matters is the premium market. We will pay you more in the more valuable markets, so you can prioritize your upgrades for appropriate markets. Google, we are aligning revenue share based on lifetime value of users. A user that upgrades has higher lifetime value than one that does not. Samsung, even then, tying revenue share to upgrades goes against our principles. AI, Samsung agreed to table this issue for now. They will 1. Revisit coupling of upgrades with revenue share, and 2. Take a look at 90-day window for upgrades. Samsung, other big concern is exclusivity in various markets, except Europe and Korea. Can we include Russia? We have agreements with various companies in different territories. Google, we will revisit Russia. Existing agreements can continue through their respective terms. Extended discussion on potential implications of exclusivity, followed by additional discussion on challenges of upgrade revisiting similar points. And then the rest of this file is redacted. But what's really standing out for me is where they're talking about the coupling of upgrades with revenue share. Have you noticed how often your phone upgrades lately? And then when your phone upgrades, it just puts these fucking apps on that bitch, and they're like, I don't want these fucking apps, and then you gotta go fucking delete that shit, and I'm instantly like, uninstall, fuck you. Back in the day, Samsung was like, we don't care for this, and now we see it happening. And so I'm like, ooh, they eventually fell for the revenue share. Like, you know what I'm saying? So we know how these negotiations ended up happening today, at least. But, So, yeah, basically this document was a discussion about the terms of the revenue share agreement with Korea and then Samsung. I don't know if I said that right, but whatever. I think you know what the fuck is happening, right? If you're paying attention. I barely do. But the bottom half of this document is the most important part for me, where they're talking about the coupling the upgrades with the revenue share. Yeah. Because your phone has to be upgraded to be compliant with the Google services shit too. And so that's a whole nother loophole that they kind of like use to kind of, in my opinion, lock you in, if I'm not mistaken, right? I don't know. So anyway, today we just got through 3 trial exhibits. We also processed and realized that I'm not actually halfway done. I got a lot more longer to go. So now I've done like 108 trial exhibits, and I think I have like 109 more to go. So after the next live stream, I'll actually be fucking halfway done. It just fucking felt like I was over halfway done because of how mundane and long and boring some of this can kind of be. But I think it's worth getting through, because when the exciting moments come, it's like, haha, it was all worth it. But anyway, so we went through 3 trial exhibits today. We went over an email from Joan Braddi to Sundar Pichai, replying about Apple response to extension term length. And in this email chain, it was a bunch of fucking Google employees all up in there. And the long and short of it was they're basically saying that they need to play hardball. Apparently, the people at Apple had given them a deadline on negotiations, because the people at Apple were trying to basically get more flexibility with the default placements that they were being held to. And so they tried to use like a quick they tried to use a negotiation tactic where they set a quick deadline on it in order to push that through, I think. But basically, Google was like, nah, fuck that, because if they leave us, we'll be fine, fuck them. And so we're going to play hardball, and they didn't like the timeline. So they were like, fuck that negotiation tactic. We're pressing for the revenue share agreement default exclusivity, and if they don't like it, they can suck a dick, is basically what Google was saying, if I understood all of that correctly. And then with the next email chain, oh, actually, I apologize. I just basically said the second thing we did, I think. It's all kind of blurring together. I forgot to summarize the first thing we read. I accidentally summarized the second thing first. The first thing, I haven't really processed why it's in evidence, but it looks like they were talking about their ability. It looks like an email chain where one person was begging her superiors to help her to recognize how good of a job her team did and to let her team continue the project, even though they weren't generating enough income previously for the funding for the project to continue. But in that conversation, there was also a discussion about about getting sales qualified, variety of sales qualified people in. If I'm understanding correctly, based on the updates that was the project that her team was working on in that email chain to the Omnibots, which is Google's search bots. You know what I'm saying? One of the Google's Chrome search bots things. Yeah, so the Google Chrome Omnibots related to their functions, I'm not using the right words because I'm not processing. All of that shit was incremental in users, in getting more users for Google. And so that project wasn't generating the income it was supposed to generate, though. So we saw an email chain where the person in charge of that project was basically trying to ask her superiors to let her keep doing it. And I think it was put into evidence because of the information about how the Chrome Omnibots impacted. They used the acronym SQV, and I am assuming by that they're referring to the qualifying a variety of salespeople, because it can mean basically something like the sales qualification variant or some shit like that. You have to Google it. All right, Google what the fuck SQV means. Okay, we did that earlier. Anyway, so we did that first, and then we did the other trial exhibit where Google and Apple, where Google was discussing the Apple. I cannot speak. Discussing the Apple negotiation, and basically the Google employees were not okay with the fact that Apple tried to put them on a time limit on that negotiation. They were like, fuck that. And then we just spent way too long also with a break reading the other document related to Google going to Korea for a Samsung meeting. And in that conversation, Samsung was basically like, at that time, they were against. Google wanted to couple the revenue share agreement with upgrades, and Samsung was against that, basically. And yeah, because if your phone or whatever isn't upgraded, that's also a part of the revenue share agreement already too, though, because if you're not getting upgrades, then you're not compliant or whatever. If you're not eligible for upgrades, you're not being compliant with the Google services. So that's one aspect, right? At a certain point, and then it's no longer in operation for the device. This is how Google does that. And then Google was trying to negotiate for an additional revenue share if Samsung was having certain apps involved with the upgrades. And that's how I think we got to where we are today, where every time your fucking phone upgrades, well, not every time, but a lot of times if your phone upgrades, you notice there's all those fucking apps. I think these internal documents that we are reading was how that all kind of started and got negotiated and put into place, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, I'm sorry about that. That was a terrible summary, but we are here now, you know. I feel like my mind is a little discombobulated today, but whatever. It's kind of like that every day. But we're still processing. We're still making it. We're still here. So yeah, we're going to keep reading more, keep going through it next time. We are now at 108 trial exhibits covered. Why the fuck does the captioner keep putting Charles instead of trial? It never fucking puts trial exhibits right whenever I'm saying that. I said trial exhibits. God damn it. It'll put one word but not the other. Fuck it. Anyway. Yeah, so we're at 108 done so far. I think, if I'm not mistaken, we've got 109 more to go or some shit like that. So buckle in. We'll be here all night. Well, not tonight, but we'll be here a while in general. And I hope you have a good night. Thanks for dealing with all of this. I'm sorry, or you're welcome. Thanks for watching. Join the loyalty program at noladeafchild.com/loyalty and check in during live streams to get points for rewards.